rocking the Lost Zone box with Origin Form Dialga V-Star. Ethan, I cannot wait to see what this deck has in store for us.
Corey is a die-hard Dialga stan, loves playing this card. I remember back in Milwaukee, played this card in a great, close Game 3 set where he ended up finding the last 2 Metal Saucer he needed to take a big knockout, and has been loving
back
Dialga
Milwaukee
since.
Last season, right?
Yeah, that was Milwaukee last season.
You say long time ago Milwaukee. I mean, for some people, that was just 7 days ago, right?
That's true. A lot of stuff. And on Christmas side, playing Marite on EX is a deck that, for lack of better words, has performed pretty bad on stream consistently. It's, I think, 0-4-1 so far in stream games. But listen, if there's any matchup, and specifically in this matchup where Marite can get aggressive, it's this early on. But on the flip side, really talk to me about this. What does each deck have going for it up against each other, and where can they really struggle in terms of this matchup?
So we were kind of trying to think about what this matchup would play out as on paper. Miraidon has the consistency and the power to just get through the deck and potentially take 2 prizes on turn 1 onto like something like an Origin Form Dialga V-Star. But if Corey can set up, and that's really what this matchup I think is going to come down to, is if Corey can get to the point where he gets off the Star Chronos V-Star power, it's pretty easy for him to channel a Star Chronos into a Metal Burst, into effectively a 4 prize turn, even though it's technically 2 turns, you're skipping your opponent's turn, right? But 4 prizes before your opponent even gets to draw a card. That's really what this is going to come down to for me. Now, Christopher Lopez is playing a few unique things in this list. Has a decent count of Judge. There's 2 copies in here. Has that Magnezone V-Star. I don't think that's going to be too big of a factor, but to me, one of the bigger factors will be that Raichu V, being able to come in and take 1-hit KOs on Origin Form Dialga V-Stars in the late game, assuming they can get powered up by some Flaffies getting extra energy cards into play, which, by the way, Ethan, one of those already in the prizes.
One of those in the prize cards, one of those Origin Form Dialga V also in the prize cards. Corey's only playing 2 copies of that card. Playing a relatively thin line, and as you said, it really does rely off of Star Chronos, one of the most powerful effects in the Pokemon trading card game, taking an additional turn.
Yeah, it doesn't really get much more powerful than that, right? Just cutting your opponent off of doing anything for a full turn. You get 2 turns, you get to play 2 supporters effectively, you get to attach extra energy cards, and most powerfully, 2 attacks, potentially 4 prizes. I'm excited, Ethan. This is going to be a really fun one to see play out. Looking at Corey's list, though, there's no history in Heavy Ball in here, so he will, in fact, only have 1 Origin Form Dialga V-Star to work with.
Seems like a staple in these Lost Zone decks, but Corey not going with it. Also had a few Comfey hiding out in the prizes, and it looks like Corey will be starting things off. Great starter there in that Comfey. Has access to some interesting ways. Looking at how this deck is built, really relying off Trekking Shoes early on. Of course, still playing Battle VIP Pass, Mirage Gate, but really relying off this early. Let's see what the choice is. Deciding to discard Cramorant for 1 more card. How do you feel about that, getting rid of that piece?
Cramorant is a card that is extremely powerful, but Corey's in a position where he really needs to value his setup. So that's, I think, why he was debating getting rid of Cramorant here potentially, but decided to ultimately go with it because he's looking for that turn 1 Battle VIP Pass. He's not going to find it quite yet, as this Flower Selecting does see a Metal Energy and a Nest Ball, but even though Nest Ball is not quite as powerful as VIP Pass, it will at least get him a little something else going in play, maybe a Greninja or a Comfey here.
And looking very solid, though. Has Nest Ball. This can get down either another Comfey or that Origin Form Dialga V. Has Colress's Experiment for the following turn, so we'll be cooking, we'll be getting things going. And looking at the turn clock, right, both these decks want to go aggressive. You want to try to, as you said, race towards that Star Chronos. If Corey can get a lot of cards in the Lost Zone, how soon are we talking here to potentially get off this powerful V-Star attack and take some extra turns?
I mean, it could be a turn 2 thing. It involves a lot of Mirage Gate. It involves, getting down the V this turn. So I don't think he's really going to value going for it as quickly as possible, but turn 3, it seems totally doable, without a doubt.
Looks like Comfey will be the choice off the Nest Ball. Searching through the deck, does play a few copies of Water Energy, of course. Mirage Gate only allows you to get 2 different types of basic energy, and that Dialga does attack for 4 metal and a colorless, so you have a little bit of flexibility in terms of putting a Water Energy on to get that attack cost, but a Metal Burst, the other attack of choice, 40 damage, plus 40 for every Metal Energy on, so Metal Energy going to be the staple, playing a lot of those. 11 copies of Metal Energy, wants to be hitting for big damage and finding those cards.
And you mentioned the Water Energy, and that's to key into one of the other attacking options in this deck, and that is just to use Radiant Greninja. This deck is full of Metal Pokemon. It has the Zamazenta from Crown Zenith in here. The only thing that can utilize the 3 Water Energy that Corey plays, I guess besides technically Cramorant could, but I don't think we'll be seeing that.
Don't forget about Manaphy, of course.
The Rain Splash, Kyle's favorite attack, right? No, I think Radiant Greninja is going to be the other option. Not probably in this matchup, but I have to imagine just with the way the deck is constructed, that's an option for you pretty often.
Zamazenta, another great attacker, of course. 220 is a perfect number to hit up against Miraidon EX with exactly 230 HP. So doesn't quite get there, but again, puts some pressure.
No, it's got 220.
Oh, it's 220, my bad.
You're right,
so
yeah.
I keep thinking about Zacian V.
I was leaning in real quick
yeah.
to look at the Miraidon to make sure it wasn't resistant to metal, because for a long time, lightning Pokemon were resistant to metal, but yeah, these days they're not getting printed with that metal resistance, which is definitely good for the case of Zacian that you just, or Zamazenta, excuse me, that you just mentioned.
Tandem unit, not even used yet, and right away we see that Magnezone V come down.
Interesting.
A great card against these Lost Zone engines.
Yeah.
Of course, that V-Star attack, 90 damage to 2 Pokemon. Really going to put Corey in a position where one of these last 2 bench spaces are going to have to be committed to that Manaphy. Otherwise, it's going to be free prizes for Chris.
And the unique thing as well about this Magnezone V is that its first attack allows you to switch in, I believe it's Magnet Pulse, switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to the active spot and deal 40 damage to it, which, of course, is enough to knock out Manaphy, as it is weak to lightning, only has 70 hit points, so you're hitting it effectively for 80 damage, take that out, and then set up for the V-Star play on the next turn.
Now, in Chris's shoes here, you really don't exactly know what you're playing against. I mean, so far, this looks like a typical Lost Zamazenta deck where they're playing Metal and Water Energy. Is there any way that Chris should be maybe not playing a specific way to play around Dialga, since it so far is a surprise factor for him?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much you can do to play around Dialga, to be honest. You kind of just have to play your own game and hope that it's enough to get you there before Dialga's able to control time and space and manipulate the board state so that your opponent somehow ends up with 4 prizes before you've done anything.
So we do see the first tandem unit being used. Miraidon and Zapdos from Team Up. Of course, that lightning symbol ability, all lightning Pokemon in play, not just basic lightning Pokemon, do 10 more damage. That will boost up Photon Blaster to 230 damage. Electric Generator getting played, 5 cards in the top. Do we see any lightning energy?
A couple.
And look at that. Not playing 18 energy we saw earlier, 15 cards, but those big 2 energy being found. An interesting choice putting those on Miraidon when potentially Magnezone is an attacking option. And of course, if Manaphy doesn't come down, that's really what you want to be using as your V-Star power.
Yeah, I feel like Miraidon seems like a decent attacker to lead with when you're not 100% sure what your opponent's playing. Chris was able to get down a Mareep, so this is something, it's kind of iffy if we see the Flaffy line in the Miraidon deck. Some people will choose to include it, some people will not. But this gives you a little bit more leeway, right? Usually you would want to be a little more protective of your energy. 3 energy cards onto a Miraidon in order to take a knockout on a 70 HP Comfey feels like a pretty big commitment. But whenever you know that you'll be able to get those energy cards back into play with Dynamotor in the future, it's really not so bad.
Chris has not played a supporter for turn. Will play Ultra Ball. Had a choice between Judge and potentially this Research. We will see the Research get played. What do you think about that instead of playing Judge against his Lost Zone deck?
Yeah, I think it seems okay. You want to value your own setup initially. You haven't seen too much from Corey just yet. Just a couple flower selectings. Judge obviously is extremely strong, but you have to play your own game first before you worry about disrupting your opponent, right? And I think Chris knows that and wants to try to get out to a bit of a lead here, take this first prize, and feels like his best chance to do that is going to be off of Research. Now, granted, all he needs is 1 lightning energy, right? Beach Court is in play. That's a free retreat option, thanks to Corey having to put that in play last turn. So maybe there's an argument to go for the Judge, and we do see the gentlemanly high five, the perfect zero card hand Research for 7 fresh cards.
Right or wrong,
players.
It's worth the content, right, to just get those. And plethora of lightning energy found off that Research. Another Electric Generator as well. I think just slam that down into play. Let it ride. Top 5 cards again. Do we see any more lightning energy to put onto something like this Magnezone V? And there is one.
Not bad.
I think that's a good choice. Put that on the Magnezone V. That means next turn all you need is an attachment and that V-Star. Electro Star could be online. You've also got that Forest Seal Stone on there. So if you really need the consistency, there is that option, but sometimes it feels like you instantly need to play something like Forest Seal Stone to keep yourself in the game, and then kind of think to yourself, well, there goes my chance of using something like that.
Yeah, I like that Chris attached the Forest Seal Stone still to this Pokemon, so he's got the option, right? He can go for the Star Alchemy if he needs to get a specific card in a pinch, but also wants to more than likely save it for the Electro Star.
Still has access to concealed cards, card in this deck we didn't see initially, but with the combination of Mareep and Flaffy, of course, discard the energy, bring them back, and there it is. Poor Comfey going down to a big Photon Blaster. Chris takes the first prizes here in game number 1.
Yeah, super cool to see this very consistent version of Miraidon on full display. Corey Godfrey responding now with a Colress, exactly what you want to do as the Lost Zone player.
Still no sign of any Dialga V. A few energy cards, Mirage Gate, Choice Belt, not something that matters too much. You can push math up on something like Raikou, but you're usually not struggling to hit those numbers. And same thing with Magnezone V-Star. Sure, it's helpful, but do you really value it over, I mean, they're solid pieces in this hand. I mean, you got Colress, a few energy cards, Mirage Gate.
It looks like Corey's debating Lost Zoning the Colress here, and I think that's what he's going to end up going with. Anytime you're sitting across from a Lost Box player and you see them put a Colress's Experiment in the Lost Zone, you have to get a little scared. You have to know that they've got something powerful working in that hand for them.
Brewing up some magic, or in this case, a very powerful legendary Pokemon, but still unable to find any Dialga. This is going to be a big flower selecting. Do we see something? And it is a Nest Ball and a Metal Energy. Not something you want to have to get rid of, a bunch of these energy cards, but it will be that hitting the Lost Zone. Nest Ball can be played, but this fully powered up Miraidon is in play. Is it risk? I mean, it feels like it's risky to put Dialga in play, but if you never put it down, how are you winning this matchup?
Yeah, you're going to have to put it down at some point, and I think what Corey would probably like to do is put it down at the same time that he puts down the Zamazenta and attacks with it, right? So your opponent has a choice. They either knock out the Zamazenta, which has a bunch of energy cards on it, or they go Boss or Serena, KO your Dialga on the bench, but if they do that, then they know they're going to get hit by Zamazenta right away because they're not dealing with that threat. Corey, I don't think is going to be able to pull that off this turn. He still needs 2 more cards in the Lost Zone to activate Mirage Gate. This Nest Ball could find a Comfey potentially, but then he would still need a way to get 1 more card into the Lost Zone. It doesn't seem super likely, so he's settling here on that Origin Form Dialga V.
Dialga V hitting the board, does, as you said, have the Zamazenta in hand. A few copies of those switching cards. Will be the attachment for turn to the Dialga, so slowly powering it up over time. Needs 4 more energy to be able to utilize Star Chronos and get an attack off. And we are just going to see Cramorant come to the active spot. One of those Cramorants are discarded, and there's no cards like Clara to bring back these Cramorants, but still going to put some damage on the board. Spit innocently, 110. Right on, half of HP gone. Question for me, is there a boss's orders? This would be the perfect time to target down this Dialga. Now you have information that this is the strategy Corey is cooking up.
Yeah, Chris has a few different plays available here. Could also go for the Magnezone V-Star this turn. There's only one, or does the Magnezone only target the bench? I actually don't remember 100%.
No.
I think it can
it's only bench Pokemon.
Is it only bench Pokemon? I was going to say he could target the active Cramorant and that benched Comfey to take 2 prize cards, but that's not going to be a play available. So I think Chris's best line is going to be bossing or Serena onto that Dialga, just like you mentioned. Take 2 prizes, get pretty far ahead.
I feel like even if you can't boss, still hitting this Dialga for 90 damage sets it up in range for something like a Photon Blaster to do that. I believe, looking at Christopher's list, does play 1 copy, or actually 2 copies of Raichu V, and that is his other 1-hit potential, but not very sustainable for back-to-back hits because, of course, 60 damage, you have to discard a certain amount of lightning energy. There's a lot on board right now, but no bench space for it, as it seems.
Chris does play 2 Serena and 3 Boss's Orders, so there's a lot of gusting in this list. So you have to feel like there's a pretty decent chance Chris can find one this turn. Not sure if he already has it in hand. I don't see it just yet, but a Concealed cards could potentially yield one of these gust options. Let's see it, Ethan. 2 cards to come, Serena or Boss, and I actually do not see it.
If he had found one of those cards, could have used the star power on the Magnezone to find the other piece, target it down, and we would have a completely different game in this position.
And here we go with the Electric Generator. 5 cards off the top, looking for a couple energy. Is only able to hit 1 here. So he's got to take a look at the hand, figure out exactly what he wants to do. And I think Chris actually has a pretty decent play lined up. You can Electric Generator, get this attachment to the Miraidon EX, Dynamotor with the Flaffy, attach energy for turn, retreat with the Beach Court, and then use that V-Star power in order to go search out Boss or Serena in order to take 2 prizes. That seems like the best play to me.
Beach Court not being played down by Chris, but playing in a lot of value, allowing him to consistently pivot out these Pokemon. Flaffy now on board, Dynamotor, an ability we've seen in and out of the Pokemon TCG for since back in the black and white era. Noble victories. It's been a while since it returned, but more than happy to be here.
And what's funny too about this Flaffy is that it is almost exactly the same as the Electric from all the way back in Noble Victories. It's got the exact same stats, the exact same Electro Ball attack, the exact same Dynamotor ability, the same retreat cost, same weakness. I mean, honestly, Ethan, why don't they just let me use the Electrics? Come on. I feel like it should be legal.
Save me a little bit of money on the way here.
I've already got the other ones, you know.
You already got them, right? No need to reinvest. And just like you said, 3 energy now on that bench Miraidon. Chris has had a great time accelerating, putting this into play, but
debating between Judge or maybe using that V-Star power, and I think he wants to save the V-Star power just in case Magnezone can come in at some point. So goes with the Judge, which this is a pretty strong turn to Judge, right? You know your opponent has a solid hand. There was a lot of cards in there. They just chose to Lost Zone a Colress last turn, so you know they probably have another one or some other powerful supporter waiting in the wings. So putting them to just 4 cards when you're going to be taking a knockout, still overall very solid.
So those trade-offs. Every turn you play boss, you're not disrupting your opponent's hand, but that's both of the Judge gone for Chris at this point. No more ways to disrupt Corey's hand. This is all you've got access to. See what Chris can find. I feel like he's already tapped out on mostly everything he can do. Does find Switch, so if he wants to, he could actually attack with the damaged Miraidon. This would mean that something like Zamazenta could knock out the one that already has the damage on it. It would be a little bit more difficult, but it's just going to be the Beach Court retreating, saving the Switch, Photon Blaster, taking the knockout on the Cramorant. Chris going down now to 4 prize cards, and Corey's got to put together some sort of an attack, and by that I mean multiple attacks and taking some extra turns with the star power sometime soon.
This would be such a strong turn to pull it off, and Corey is holding a pretty solid hand. There's a couple Mirage Gates there. Looks like Energy Recycler is going to have to hit the Lost Zone. That is a pretty tough card to lose. You're only playing 1 copy in this list compared to the Kyogres we're used to seeing that have 4 waiting.
Concealed cards. Choice was a Metal Energy instead. What does he find?
Was that Raihan?
No, it's
that's
that
the Dialga.
Origin Form Dialga V-Star, that beautiful one from Crown Zenith, the secret rare. I mean, how many? You can't even play Mirage Gate, though. You're at 6 cards in the Lost Zone. What, do you just Metal Blast for 80? That doesn't feel like you're doing anything. What do you retreat into here?
Yeah, this is looking tough, and it might just be an angle of send up Greninja and say goodbye, friend. You've helped me out so much. I'm going to miss the good times we had, but I'm going to need you to take a hit for the team here. We got to power up this Dialga and get it ready to go.
Big find there, though. Finding that Dialga V-Star, it means something like this Photon Blaster coming in this turn will not knock it out, even with the Zapdos. 240, and even something like Choice Belt as well would be 10 damage short of getting the knockout. That's something big to note.
Chris has 1 energy in the discard pile. Of course, that Flaffy ready to go with the Dynamotor. Could also concealed cards here this turn. Looks like Dynamotor will be the choice. Powering up that Magnezone V, and this could be an interesting choice as well, as Magnezone V does have the Splitting Beam attack. It deals 90 damage, and then 30 damage to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So you take a knockout, and you can soften up that Dialga on the bench like we mentioned earlier.
Speaking of black and white, this reminds me of Darkrai EX at this point. It seems like it's all coming back
Night
together
Spear
here.
comes all the way back around.
Even better. Hit 2 bench
two
Pokemon instead.
Exactly.
Well, that's value if I'm seeing it. So it looks like we're going to see Professor's Research discarding the hand. 7 fresh new cards for Chris.
That is a lot of energy cards.
Flooded with energy, plenty of choices. We actually saw energy down on the Zapdos. We could see Electric Ball coming in and dealing a little bit of damage, and there it is. Magnezone V-Star coming into play. And
is it Electro Star time? That's the question.
I think it might be. Now, what do you target here, though, off this Electro Star? I feel like Comfey is the easy choice, but is it always just going after Dialga? It feels like that has to be the best choice.
I think that has to be the best choice. I totally agree with you. You've got 2 Miraidon on the bench fully powered up. This sets it up so that either of those 2 Miraidon can now get that knockout. You don't have to worry about Raichu later on. This feels like an extremely strong play. You take away Corey's immediate route to get 1 more card in the Lost Zone to activate Mirage Gate as well. This is looking really strong for Chris, and Corey,
it is.
There's nothing he can do with this hand.
It's unplayable. 3 Switch card, 2 Mirage Gate. You're 1 card short of being able to utilize that card. I think you just scoop things up and go next game. There's no reason to waste any more time on the clock. Once Chris goes down to 2 prize cards, sure, your game plan of taking 4 with Star Chronos plus something else is good, but your opponent can just set up 1 last attacker and take this knockout.
It is just going to be the pass back over to Chris, who has boss's orders waiting in this hand. Even getting an energy, Zapdos here is even getting involved. Are we going to see the Electric Ball from Zapdos come in? Take the 1 prize? No, we've got to boss that Dialga, right?
And Corey understands. The game is over at this point. I have nothing on my board. My opponent will be at 1 prize card. Scooping things up. Corey, I have to say, a little bit of bias maybe behind the caster table here, wanting to see something new and unique do well, and Listen, Miraidon has not won yet on stream. It's in a position now, 1-0, with a potential to get
Hey,
its first
listen,
win.
there is no bias back here towards Dialga. It's all Miraidon, baby. You've got Miraidon's #1 fan sitting back here with you.
That is
Love
true.
to see the win from Chris, playing an interesting list with the Flaffies. Comes out on top, and we'll see if he's able to keep pushing that advantage, or if Corey is going to be able to lost zone enough cards this time to activate those Mirage Gates.
Thought you were on the creativity train here, man. Here you are supporting Miraidon.
I just like putting energy cards in play and taking knockouts, man. That's what Pokemon's all about.
Nice and simple like that. Listen, can't hate you for that, for sure. So, I mean, a lot of things went wrong there for Corey, right? Didn't get the Dialga set up right away, struggled to get lost zone cards. Is it really just a matter of pacing it to get faster, or was there anything in his control you think he could have made some different choices
I wonder if Corey could have maybe gotten down another Comfey early on in the game, a turn that he chose to get something else, Nestballed for that Dialga, for example. I think he did prize. Yeah, he prized a couple Comfey, so that probably has something to do with it there, more so than anything. So that's worth remembering as well as we think back on game #1. So it might just be an unfortunate sequence of Corey, and he did choose to lost zone that Colress the one turn. Obviously, his opponent did judge him the next turn, but if your Colress is in the lost zone, you have 0 chance to draw it off judge. If you keep it around, you at least have a small chance to get it there.
Flaffy hiding out in the prize cards yet again for Chris does also prize that Radiant Greninja. We saw that was able to draw some key cards as he was digging through his deck, and of course discarding those energies allows them to be brought back with Flaffy. Corey needs a really solid start to keep up with the aggression that Chris had last game. If he can continuously hit these electric generators, put these energy into play, could be a different story. Could be actually the same story over for Chris in game 2.
Corey now drawing another new hand, does find a basic. Chris will have 1 additional card to work with thanks to the mulligan. Let's watch these prize cards go out. 1 boss, a Dialga V-Star, but it's down at the bottom of the prizes. I don't think this is anything too bad, Ethan.
Looks like we're going to have a good game 2, hopefully, as long as Chris can get things set up and does have that Battle VIP pass, so exactly what you want to see. 2 cards out of the deck. I think Radiant Greninja and Comfey will probably be the safe choice to start things off right away. Corey getting set up, finding these Pokemon, all thanks to Battle VIP pass.
And over on Chris's side, did start that Miraidon EX, that excellent tandem unit ability, of course, going to be able to get more Pokemon into play next turn. So even though Chris doesn't have something like VIP pass to fill the bench, getting the Miraidon is just as good.
So instead, looks like might be 2 Comfey. What do you think about that instead of Radiant Greninja? I feel like always it's tough not getting Greninja to play because you're going to put yourself in a situation where you flower selecting, it's the Radiant Greninja, and then it's another card that you want. You just like, I could have grabbed this off Battle Pass instead.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think is if you have an energy card in your hand that you want to use concealed cards with, that you want to ditch to draw 2 more cards, I still think it is worth it to get Greninja down because, you know, especially with a deck like Corey's where you're playing 14 energy cards, your most likely hit on a flower selecting is going to be another energy. So you can just get another energy up and running, get it into the discard pile, and keep on drawing through the deck.
First flower selecting, very easy choice, or rather no choice in the matter. 2 copies of Colress.
Yeah, that's tough.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and then pick whichever one you want at that point.
Yeah, I think Corey, I will say this though, I mean, there is an argument to kind of think about it a little more, right? Corey, whenever he immediately looks at 2 cards and then lost zones a Colress instantly, that gives Chris information. My opponent's got a Colress in their hand, obviously, if he just would think about it like that and go for that play. So maybe at least shuffle the cards, look at your hand for a second, think about it, then throw the Colress away. You know.
See, when I do it, it's like Battle Pass another card. I'll wait 30 seconds and then throw the Battle Pass away. My opponent gets mad.
And Corey even has another Colress hiding over there in that hand.
Lots to work with. Water Energy hitting the Lost Zone and passing over to Chris. Does have Miraidon EX active, so Tandem Unit can be used whenever. Speaking of which, using it now. 2 Lightning Pokemon out of the deck, you know the deal. Most likely be another Miraidon and potentially something like the Raikou. We didn't see that come down last game, but that is the easiest attack for Chris to pull off, especially against a Lost Zone deck. You want to go fast. You want to start taking prizes as soon as possible.
It does only have 200 hit points, so it's a little easier to KO, but I don't think it really matters in this matchup specifically, right? Cramorant still 2-hit KOs you. You're still going to go down to the Star Chronos, so it makes sense to get that Raikou powered up as you can just get the hit on the electric generator, and then even if you don't hit a switching card or a beach court, you can attach to the active to retreat it. Worst case scenario.
Both Tandem Units used. Getting that Zapdos from Team Up damage so far hasn't been too relevant, but also getting down Mareep into play, so Dynamotor can be online as soon as next turn.
What's interesting here, though, is that there's no bench space, just one little bench spot left. So that means there's no bench space for both Magnezone and Radiant Greninja. Chris is going to have to make the choice. Obviously, we have the benefit of knowing that Radiant Greninja is prized. I assume maybe Chris did that check as well, so that might be why he's going this route, feeling okay about it. But Magnezone does still seem like an overall really strong attacker in this matchup.
Does have one of those electric generator in hand and the beach cord. And
it would make sense why Magnezone wasn't grabbed now. It was hiding in the hand.
It's there all along, hiding in plain sight. And feels like we say this every time. These electric generators are so big, the backbone of this deck in terms of being speedy, getting attacks off quickly. Let's see how many lightning energy are there.
Oh, baby.
And we're hitting them all today. 2 lightning energy put into play. Might as well put those on the Raikou now. The pivoting option already in hand in the beach court and still has the ability to power up one of these Pokemon. Most likely we'll see this come down onto the Magnezone or even the Miraidon to threaten something like a Photon Blaster next turn.
Yeah, that's the question. Which one is better to power up? And I actually think it's probably Miraidon first. It requires 2 more energy cards in order to get attacking, whereas Magnezone only requires 2 energy itself just naturally. So you can get that next turn with the attach plus a Dynamotor. I guess it's kind of the same thing, right? But you'd rather send up a Miraidon to the active and then the Magnezone, I think, in order to Beach Court pivot into it because you have to maybe evolve your Magnezone. So overall, I think that's where the attachment makes the most sense. But you know what? Let's throw it on Magnezone V anyway.
Didn't take your advice. See
that's
if it comes back to backfire for him here. But for now, still more than you can ask for. 3 energy into play turn 1. It's the power when Electric Generator hits your lightning energy and a research to follow it up. Does only have 1 copy of Raichu, lots of Rai Pokemon in this deck. Raichu, the other one is in the prize cards. Yep. Still finding 7 fresh cards to work with. Let's see what we have access to. Sort of this is what happens with the deck. You find what you need, and all you're really looking for at this point is more energy, things like Flaffy. None of those right there. Still can draw another card with Fleet-Footed. And speaking of which, are we looking at some more energy cards? I feel like you always just slam it down.
Yeah, I think it is best to just slam it down because you still have the most energy cards in your deck of any single card available. You don't want to draw into them, so play the Electric Generator. Even if you don't need any more energy cards this turn, even if you're looking at a hand with a few energy cards, I guess there could be an argument to actually hold it with Chris's specific hand because he did have Judge in hand with 3 energy cards, so I could maybe see the argument for that, right? Hold the Electric Generator, play the Judge next turn, and then maybe see to draw the Electric Generator on the other end of the Judge so that you put some energy cards back, but just general rule of thumb, it can't really ever be too wrong to just slam the Electric Generator.
Almost as perfect as you can draw things up for Chris. Turn 1 attack with Raikou, Lightning Rondo, 160 damage, taking the knockout on the poor Comfey. First prizes for Chris, and a great response here for Corey. Has Colress's Experiment, will start to get more cards in the Lost Zone, really looking to get down multiple copies of that Origin Form Dialga. Finds one, finds the Manaphy as well.
I think he wants every card in this hand.
This is hard.
It's a Colress, it's a Manaphy, it's a Nest Ball.
I feel like you have to keep the Colress, especially because you already Lost Zoned one. That has to be the immediate keep, and then the Dialga is also an immediate keep. So what's the last card you take?
The problem is, the Zamazenta is the other card he's choosing to take right now, and I think that's a pretty important card to hang on to. Corey has to debate if it's okay to get rid of Manaphy at this point. And that's the tough thing when you see your opponent has a Magnezone V with a energy on it already. The Nest Ball is the easy choice to get rid of these 5. The question is, what is the other? I don't think you can ditch the Colress. I think it has to be the Manaphy. And that probably means Corey needs to play this game without benching another Manaphy. You don't want to ever give your opponent that easy 2-prize turn with the Magnezone V-Star, taking out 2 Comfeys. So you only ever really are going to want to have one in play at this point. But that's really tough when it's the entire draw engine of your deck.
Does find the second copy of Origin Form Dialga V, so I think a good strategy in this matchup, play both of them down at the same time. Opponent can't knock both of them out, so you can put yourself in a position where you're guaranteed to get one of these V-Stars down. See the first one get benched into play, and there it is, 2 coming down. There's 5 cards in the Lost Zone, so this Cramorant is available to attack, put on some pressure this turn. As we know, several copies of that Colress's Experiment in the hand. Yep. First energy coming down as well.
And I like the decision here from Corey to just try to play out a bunch of cards. Knows his opponent plays a couple Judge. We saw them both in the last game. I would like to see Corey maybe throw down the Zamazenta. It feels like such a strong attacker in this matchup specifically, so getting that into play. Honestly, attaching an energy to the Zamazenta would have been pretty decent, as Corey does play Raihan as well, so next turn, theoretically, he could go, if he attaches here, he goes Raihan plus attach. Zamazenta's powered up without having to Lost Zone any cards.
Still plenty of options to work with. Cramorant spit innocently 110 damage into the Raikou V. And the options are limitless for Chris. Has Magnezone V-Star in hand. An attachment to put wherever he so chooses to, judge and research. But I feel like this is better time than ever to disrupt your opponent's hand. You know, they probably have some good cards if they've just lost some solid pieces like Manaphy from their 5 cards they saw in Colress. Attachment goes down. There's the Magnezone V-Star. Will we see that be utilized this turn, or are we going to see Raikou attack instead? Especially the attachment there says that is more than possible. It does, of course, have an attack that does find items out of the deck. Could see that be used too. Lots of options here for Chris.
Plenty of options. I'm kind of curious to see the fleet-footed being used. I imagine that the judge is going to be the supporter for turn, and sure enough, it is. Generally, you want to save your fleet-footed for the other end of the judge as you just get yourself one more card to work with. I wonder if Chris had a specific card he had in mind where, okay, if I hit this card off of this fleet-footed, then I can go for a different line of play. That might be what was going through his mind there before choosing to use that fleet-footed before going for judge.
Does still have the V-Star power. We've, of course, talked about Magnezone's attack. Would be great if it could target this active. That would be 2 easy prizes, but only two bench Pokemon can be hit for 90 damage. Both players shuffling in, drawing 4 cards. Judge is a staple. It's been here for a while. Next set, not as popular. So, listen, I'm here to watch some judges be played time and time again. Not looking too great for Corey on his side. What did Chris find? Importantly, finds the Flaffy, so Dynamotor is online. There is that 1 energy that was discarded on the first turn of the game with Professor's Research. So
I wonder if we're going to see that Magnezone attack here potentially. Use that attack and search the deck for 2 item cards. Looks like the answer is going to be no for now. Just get some energy onto Miraidon, let it get a little love as well. Ooh, and are we going to just see that V-Star power being used? Okay, take out the Comfey. And this is the same strategy Chris went for in the last game, right? So can't fault him for going for it again. Seems pretty strong. Take out a Comfey. That's Corey's main way to get cards in the Lost Zone and also soften up one of these Dialga.
Great in combination with Judge as well. Took away all those potential cards. And there is nothing in this hand. Stuck with Mirage Gate energy cards. Did not get a chance to put Radiant Greninja into play. It might just be a attach, spit innocently, and passing the turn back over to Chris.
Yeah, this is looking tough for Corey. He really needed to find a Colress off of this Judge and was not able to do it. I like it when I like this decision here from Corey, though. When you're stuck in a tough spot, split the energy up onto the 2 Dialga. That way you're able to have options for either one depending on what your opponent does on the next turn. But Chris is without a doubt in the driver's seat here.
A big card in hand has the escape rope.
Wow.
This can force up one of these benched Origin form Dialga V, acting essentially as a boss's orders, and as long as there's an attachment, Miraidon is primed and ready to Photon Blast away and take 2 prize cards.
Attachment for turn and that escape rope being played. Corey now has a tough call to make. Do you send up the damaged one and let your opponent take an easier KO with something like that Raikou, or do you send up the one without any damage on it? It looks like Corey will decide to send up the one with damage.
Yeah, I don't know if we saw the attachment come down. I think we did see the attachment played onto the Miraidon. Is that correct?
Yes.
I would have liked to see the escape rope be played first, see what your opponent brings
Generally,
up,
yeah.
and then attach the energy. But still, an excellent turn on top of this. Has Professor's Research, 7 more cards. We haven't seen Dynamotor get used yet, so if there's a way to discard some energy cards from his hand, speaking of which,
there's an Ultra Ball.
Has Ultra Ball in hand. Has Switch as well, so if you changed your mind, if you want to go back, you can still Beach Court out this Miraidon EX. Hey, that's a potential as well, but going to be just content with taking this knockout. 220 damage, Photon Blaster, and Chris is now 2 prize cards away from a swift 2-0 in this match.
Yeah, this is looking tough for Corey to come back from. Still only 5 cards in the Lost Zone, so the Mirage Gates are unplayable. There's a boss's orders in hand, so I mean, boss up the Zapdos or the Flaffy. Both of those have 2 retreat and just kind of hope. Could also boss take out the Flaffy, take a prize card, see if that helps you a little bit. Maybe take 2 prizes on that Raikou V. A few options here for Corey. Is it boss stall or boss be aggressive?
I think you got to take prizes here if you want to put together your play, especially if your opponent's going to go down to just 1 prize card left. You've got to find a way to respond. So we'll see what Corey decides to bring up. I mean, your opponent's playing so many energy. This stall play is not going to last nearly as long as you need it to.
Yeah.
And it is going to be boss's orders, instead bringing up Flaffy. So maybe wanted to make sure something like
and I think this is
Raichu doesn't come down, I guess, or something along those lines.
I think Corey is thinking this is his best chance to get back in this game. He needs time. He needs this to buy him a couple of turns. Unfortunately for Corey, though, we just know it's not going to work out. Chris is holding on to a Switch in hand, so this Flaffy is going to be able to move to the bench, and I think after that, Corey's going to draw his card and just see that there's nothing there to help him. And I don't know, a Colress could help him, right? A Colress gets him into Dialga, gets him to 7 in the Lost Zone, and maybe he can pull it off, right? That has to be the one card he can hope to top deck here.
Yeah, if he finds all those pieces, it is possible, depending on what comes up into the active spot. And we'll see the Magna Zone get put up.
Interesting. So search for a couple item cards here with this attack.
Find some electric generators, find maybe more switching outs to prevent against another stall play.
Yeah, Chris is missing out on a couple of fleet-footeds here these last few turns. There is that Beach Court, of course, being in play, so you can always send up this Raikou V in order to get an extra card drawn with the Beach Court and then retreat into whatever you want.
So quickly noting that, Chris has got to take the cards out of the deck first before taking prize cards. Of course, can't get that knowledge before making a choice. And I think Chris wants energies, and maybe some more energies there. Grabbing 2 electric generators, and as you said, it's all on Corey here.
Colress and only Colress. I think that's just about it as far as what can keep Corey in this game. Even Raihan doesn't help too much at this point.
It's one card. If there's any time to test around and try and see exactly if the hypothesis is going to work, it's here with Colress. We'll see if he can find it off the top of his deck. One card, one chance. Can Corey stay in this game, stay undefeated, force a game 3?
Here we go.
What is
Colress
it?
for turn.
It's another Mirage Gate.
Yeah, that's a full house, and that's the wrong game. So this is not working out here for Corey. Actually, only even having the 1 Beach Court in hand. Showing off the hand, giving out the fist bump, and it's going to be a 2-0 victory for Chris Lopez and his Miraidon deck, making it in to day 2 of this tournament.
Securing day 2, getting Miraidon its first win on the official stream. So congrats to Chris.
That doesn't feel like a real stat to me. I need to fact check you on that one.
You need to fact check me? I swear we haven't seen Miraidon win. But we can say for certain it has won a game now. Chris advancing to 19 match points, undefeated with Miraidon. It feels like every time we turn our attention away from this deck, focus on the Lost Zone engine, focus on Lugia, V-Star, and company, Miraidon slips through our radar sometimes, and it's here, it's undefeated, and it's in a good position to potentially not just make it through into day 2, it's locked itself up a spot so far, but even, hey, the fabled top cut, the fabled regional win, wouldn't that be a way to close the season out?
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. We're just finishing up round number 7. There is a ton more Pokemon to be played. We're not even halfway through this event yet, Ethan, with all the rounds that have to be played in day 2 and top 8. All these things still yet to come, but without a doubt, Chris can breathe a sigh of relief. 6-0-1, making it into day 2. He'll get to compete tomorrow. And he also gets to play these last 2 rounds without the stress of knowing, okay, I have to win these rounds in order to make it to the next day of competition. If you take a loss, it's okay. Obviously, you want to get as many match points as possible. You want to try to go for that 8-0-1 at this point, sitting at a 6-0-1 record. But even if you lose both of your rounds here, you're still playing in day 2 tomorrow. If you get 1 win, 1 loss, you're at 7-1-1, which is an excellent record going into day number 2. So, yeah, we'll have to keep our eye on Chris, see what happens with him through the rest of this event.
Man can dream, all right? We can see Miraidon do well. It's made 2 top cuts so far in major events. Of course, EUIC getting top 8, and then also we saw it at Portland Regional Championships with sort of a similar build that we saw.
It looks really similar
now.
to this one, yeah.
Playing lots of bosses orders, lots of